Hey everyone, welcome to another webinar from the Office of Leader and Culture Development from the Texas Tech University System. I'm glad you're here. Everybody hear me okay? A little thumbs up, audio good. I'm in a little different location. Thank you, Tanya. Tanya.
It's Tanya.
Tanya, got it.
And I used to, honestly, I'm 55, so I don't care how people pronounce it. But then my husband recently, he told me, he said, yeah, you just let people say your name all wrong. And I go, it doesn't matter. He goes, but you're just letting you're letting them say your name all wrong. And I'm like, okay. He's like, you gotta let people know. But I spent growing up in the 70s, my sister was Tammy and I
Yeah,
was Tanya. So we got a whole lot of, oh, Tammy Wynette and Tanya Tucker. So
yeah.
yeah, I spent my childhood defending the way my name was pronounced, but yeah.
But Tanya is what we'll go with,
Yes.
unless I forget, and
No,
then it will
you're
be
good.
Tanya. Because now you
You're
put the
good.
Tanya Tucker in my head,
Right.
and that's the
Right.
unfortunate part of that mnemonic. Hey, I'm glad y'all are all here. We are on the first part of a six-part series on the Enneagram. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to have as much interaction as possible, and we're going to do an overview today. And so the first thing I want to do is get you to join on Slido. And if you're not familiar with Slido, you can scan that QR code, or you can go to slido.com and put in that number. When you do not put the space in that number for whatever reason. When Slido produces the number, there is a space, but you can't put the space in there. So if you will do that, I've got a few questions I want to be able to hear from you. So that would be very helpful. And if you were on last week's Whiskey Business webinar, you will note I've tried to go without a white background this time, so my bald head does not blend in to the background. But now it's just blending into the QR code. So I got that going for me. I am glad you're here. I'm very passionate about the Enneagram and the way it works in my life. And we're going to talk about that today. And the very first thing I want to do, though, is to get you to tell me what comes to your mind when you hear the word Enneagram. If you can go to that Slido and just start typing in, that'll let us know. Numbers, that's very true. Somebody's using their Greek. Awesome. Yeah. Understanding, puzzle, helpful. For me, it's definitely been a game changer in my personal and professional life. Personality. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit today about how it differs from some other tools. Um, and personality, that's kind of coming out as the winner there. And it is. It's about personality. It's about a little bit different take on personality than some of the other inventories we may have taken. I would encourage you unmute, chime in, interrupt with questions. Um, I'm not sure I did this before, but I'm Brandon Hudson. I am a training program manager in the Office of Leader in Culture and Development for the Texas Tech University system, which means I have the great joy of thinking about how we build leaders and how we build culture. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy kind of nerding out on that and thinking about it. And I am excited to share with you about the Enneagram. And if you have questions, put them in the chat, interrupt me, chime in. Any of that stuff will work. We're going to talk about that. The second thing I just kind of want to know, since this is the first of a session series, and if you can't make them all, that's fine. If you go ahead and register, I'll make sure you get all the materials so you can miss one and still catch up. But kind of the second thing I want to know is, what are you hoping to learn in our time together? And you can even add in there, some of you seem, based on your answers, maybe you're fairly familiar with the Enneagram, but that will change the course of how we develop our time together, depending on what you'd like to get out of this. So just kind of hit it up in the Slido and let me know what are you looking for? Hey, all right. How to understand myself and other people. I want to give one warning. If you've been around the Enneagram at all, it is really best used as a self-diagnosis tool. And that said, this is both a warning and an honest admission. As soon as you learn more about the Enneagram, the first thing you're going to want to do is type everyone you know. The more you get into it, you're like, oh, so and so is being a real jerk today because they're an eight. And you know what? Sometimes eights are jerks. That's okay. It's because their hearts are so big and they care so much. But it doesn't make them easy to be around sometimes. But that's going to be the temptation. We're going to start with kind of understanding who we are, but we will talk about how we use it in teams, how to understand others better. I love the question, what is it and why should I care? It's the whole point. We'll talk about what it is. We're going to get really into what it is in the next 3 sessions, but we get an overview today, and why you should care. I hope will become evident. But I think it's a great tool for self-understanding, self-growth, and monitoring kind of my own health is how it's worked for me. How to work together, how to work with others, how to best collaborate with other types, how to apply it professionally. Yeah, that's all great. I think that we're going to cover all of that. And if something comes up, you're going to have my contact number. It'll be in the emails from me. I hope you'll reach out. I've been exposed to and around the Enneagram for about 20 years and have found it to be a very helpful tool, sometimes misunderstood, but I want this to be as conversational as you're comfortable with it being. So let's talk about what it is. Show of hands or answer in the chat. How many of you have ever taken an Enneagram inventory before? Okay. Jessica's like, yes. Shannon, okay. Karina, no. That's fine. I want to tell you that we are not going to use an inventory in our time together. The Enneagram is not, to me, in my best approach to it and understanding of it, it's not a test, it's a mirror. When we begin to understand the 9 energies, the 9 drives of the Enneagram, it helps us to understand ourselves and others better. It is not a rigorously validated tool. It is more similar, probably in some ways, of validation to the Myers-Briggs. I spent a lot of time in the last week looking at validation studies, peer-reviewed articles. It's not that. And yet I have found it to change not only my life, but the lives of many people I've encountered. About 18 years ago, I was a pastor, and I had this crazy music minister. He was an awesome guy. He wore platform shoes. He was kind of a short king. And so he wore platform shoes to conduct music at this church full of 80-year-olds. It was just amazing. But one time I said something to him, and this is related to how I feel about the Enneagram. I said, hey man, have you ever seen Wayne's World? And he looked at me dead serious. He's about 20, 30 years older than I am. He looked at me dead seriously. He said, Wayne's World changed my life. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, the flow bee. I started cutting my own hair. And I was like, that is the most backwards way to talk about cutting your own hair I may have ever heard, but it's totally fitting for who you are as a person, Brent. Thank you for sharing. For me, the Enneagram, it's not a test, it's a mirror. And it is something that I have been around for a long time. And my own experience with it is one where kind of the first thing I ever did was take an inventory. But it predates kind of humanity's ability to take inventories well. It's really ancient. It started as an oral tradition. You'll see some names up there. Akazo, Naranjo, and Rohr are some of the modern practitioners. Richard Rohr has been a big influence on my understanding of the Enneagram. Here in Texas, there's a woman out of Dallas named Suzanne Stabile, who is a phenomenal practitioner of the Enneagram. There's also a couple of names, Riso and Hudson, no relation, that really popularized it. But it traces back to, as someone said, it really reminds them about numbers. It traces back to some ancient Greek understandings, some early Sufis, some ancient Christian mystics, and also within ancient Jewish traditions, there are a lot of roots of what would become the Enneagram. What the Enneagram describes is it's simply the Greek for nine-pointed shape. That's five. Nine-pointed shape. It just means a nine-pointed shape. There are 9 numbers in the Enneagram and 3 centers. What I love about the Enneagram is that it is something, for me personally, I kind of identified through humiliation. I was listening to someone talk about it. They described a number, and I was like, who is living rent-free in my life? Who is staying in my house and seeing the worst parts that I dislike the most about me? These most ego-driven parts of me. And I know, though, for everyone, it's not about humiliation. So the word we're going to use a lot, and we'll get to it in a little bit, is resonate. We're going to describe all 9 types over the next 3 sessions. And as we do, my suspicion is, from having led workshops in the Enneagram across 3 states, is that you're going to find a number that resonates with you. Maybe it's humiliation, maybe it's just a recognition. And when you do, then you're going to have kind of an anchor point to understand not so much your behavior, but your motivation. And that's the other big difference in the Enneagram. I remember when I was starting grad school, I'd taken Myers-Briggs. I've taken a workplace Big Five, which is a much more validated instrument. We, in our office at Leader and Culture Development, use a great tool called Working Genius. We may have used it with some of you. It's fantastic. These are all tools in our tool belts. None of them alone, I think, work. Some of them work better than others, depending on your setting. What I love about the Enneagram is it's something that can apply not only to professional life, but to your personal life. And also, it doesn't really ask how you behave. It asks what drives you. What is actually at the deep root of who you are, pushing you to do what you do. The other thing I love about it is that it is dynamic. It's not fixed. We're going to get in some of the later sessions to talking about integration and disintegration, health and dishealth. And when we talk about those things, I'll just tell you, I'm an Enneagram 5. And so when I am under stress and I am not in my most emotionally healthy place, I begin to function, behave like an Enneagram 7 and not a healthy Enneagram 7. I'm from one project to the next. I just want to take trips. I just want to play games. I just want to escape. When I am in a better space, when I am being embodied and integrating into who I am, who I'm wired to be, I begin to function more like an Enneagram 8, who I already described earlier is hard to get along with sometimes. But what's great about the 8s is they have such a certainty and they act with such compassion that a healthy 8 is a force for the world. Why I tell you that is because the Enneagram is dynamic. I can examine my own life, both professionally and personally, and watch my behavior and go, hey, I am starting a bunch of projects and not finishing any of them. I wonder what's going on in my internal life that maybe I need to stop and check in so I don't get to a place of burnout, so I don't get to a place of really being unhealthy. I have found that to be extraordinary. I'll also say that I feel like the Enneagram saved my marriage. When I was, we'd probably been married, we've been married almost 24 years now. But when I was first married, we had our first kid and we were living in North Carolina, about 24 hours from family. It was stressful. It was really stressful. And as a 5, I tend to withdraw. Like I am very much live in my head. I withdraw from things. And so I had this pattern of behavior that I didn't really understand. And the more I began to understand who I was as a 5, the more I could choose to be engaged in my own life. And I find that to be true. I don't want to make it only about the personal life. For years in nonprofit work, I've used the Enneagram, sessions like this, weekend retreats, to help better understand the people we're working with. And so when we built committees and teams and structures that supported the work we were called to do, suddenly we walked into these meetings with a better understanding of who each other was, more grace for each other, knowing when to push each other, when to offer more of an olive branch. And it wasn't just about getting along. If you came to the Whiskey Business webinar, you know that getting along is not always the best thing, but it was about how to treat people with kindness. Because all of us have deep-seated motivations that drive us to do what we do. And until we examine those, we are controlled by them, is my belief. Anybody got any questions so far before we move on about kind of what the Enneagram, what we're going to be trying to do with it? Okay. Well, then let's move on a little bit. This is a quote from Richard Orr. It is just kind of what we're doing. The Enneagram is its description of 9 ego structures, the drives that drive us, and the ways we protect ourselves from the truth about who we are. And as we talk about that, I do want to be really clear. This needs to be for yourself and others, a judgment-free zone. We don't learn about ourselves to judge ourselves. We learn about ourselves to treat ourselves with more compassion. You know, in my experiences, hating and fearing something has never actually led to any substantive change. It is only through understanding and compassion and love that we can elicit the change in ourselves and others that we want to see. And honestly, that's what work is, right? We are called to make change. And change is hard. We're called to achieve certain objectives. To achieve something new dictates change. And so understanding what's driving people in those situations is really helpful, I think. Okay, let's talk about resonance and how we're going to approach this. So resonance is an old word. It's interesting when you look at the Oxford English Dictionary, you can look at the popularity of words. In its earliest forms, I mean, after we get out of its ancient languages, its earliest forms, it's simply used to describe the sound made by one object that is caused by the sound made in another object. So if you think about this, if you had 2 tuning forks standing next to each other, and you hit one, the frequency of the first fork without touching the second tuning fork will cause it to vibrate, will cause it to also make noise. We are going to get personal. And of course, I mean, you don't have to share. Anything on Slido is anonymous. I have it set up that way. If you feel vulnerable, you're welcome to share. You can share privately later. But for me, the Enneagram requires a lot of honesty, a lot of self-reflection, and that begins with resonance. We'll hear things, we'll talk about things, we'll talk about scenarios, personality types that will resonate. It will ring with you. And that's what we're looking for. Maybe it's, oh yeah, gosh, that is totally who I am. Or maybe it's, ooh, I wish I wasn't that way. That's okay if you feel that, but we're going to move past the I wish I wasn't that way to why do I feel that way? And how can I harness that thing to be a force for good? In its earliest religious settings, which again, I think the Enneagram works regardless of whether it's in a particular religious context. In its earliest settings, one of the ways that we talk about the numbers is we talk about your number is your wound. So often, I'm not your therapist. I hope you have one. I think everybody should, but I'm not your therapist. And so I don't need to hear about your childhood trauma. At the same time, I think everybody has some sort of traumatic childhood experience. I haven't met any adult who has not had some sort of moment that felt traumatic to them. And so there's this wound, but the way that they talk about it in the ancient religious traditions is that your wound is also your wisdom. Your wound is also the way that you are able to shape the world in a uniquely you sort of way. And so I think that resonance is the word I want to use because wound can be triggering and it's not everyone's experience. But what I want to reiterate yet again is that as we explore these types, there may be some descriptions of them that you resonate with that you don't love. And that's okay. But just remember that that itch you feel when you are described in a way you may not love is also the source of your power to be uniquely you in the teams and the cultures that you serve. As we described, today we're going to talk about 3 centers. I'll get to that in a second. I just want to say you need to listen for what lands. We'll have some activities that will help with that, but you really need to listen to what hits you, what's landing with you, what stings a little bit, what resonates. To take it back to some Jungian terminology, often the shadow of yourself is the place that is the door to self-understanding. Also, it could be your gift. And last warning on this, nobody should type like typology. No one should tell you your type but you. You're going to want to go home and type those closest to you. It's fine. You just don't have to tell them about it. Instead, when people understand who they are, that's the kind of self-understanding we want to have. A caveat to that. Some of you may be the only person from your team or your group or your department who are a part of this training. I firmly believe from my own experience that even though I'm telling you not to go type people, simply understanding what the other types are that are not you can definitely create more effective team culture. You can start to operate with a deeper understanding of those either you're in charge of or who are in charge of you. And it creates a very different working dynamic. Okay. I want you in the Zoom chat to answer this question. Have any of you ever been uncomfortably accurately described? And if you don't understand what that means, has anyone ever told you something about yourself that was totally right, but you hated to admit it? You don't have to name the source. You don't even have to tell me how they described you, but if you feel like it, you can. Yeah, that seems to be pretty universal. I had a friend who was a fundraiser, and he quit that to start a farm amongst the poor. He was a really cool dude, rode a Harley, had a big beard. I watched him one time lay a floor in his house using the laser sight off a handgun as a level. And yet, I'm pretty sure he was also a pacifist. So he was a complicated guy. He told me a story one time about his ex-wife, and ex being this is the part that's true. She told him he was the worst estimator of time she had ever met in her life. That whenever he told her how long something was going to take, she automatically multiplied it by 3. And then also she had some sort of equation that had to do with how many beers he was drinking at the time that also could have multiplied or subtracted from that time. And I think about that story sometimes that like, yeah, like she nailed him. Often he was a poor estimator of the truth. And I think about all the times that those closest to me have named something about me. Now, this is not on the slide. Let's see here. Everybody who's responded has said yes. Anita, I'm glad it was not uncomfortable since you and I work in the same office. I'll try to tell you something uncomfortable pretty recently so you can relate a little differently. Yeah, thank you. Oh, Justine, that's great. I was told by a very good friend that she sometimes doesn't tell me things unless she wants to hear the truth. Oops. I'm not going to say oops. I'm going to say think about how high your reliability rating is for that friend. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, now I want you to think about that time that someone described you that was uncomfortable or true. And unless you're Anita and you weren't uncomfortable, and you can still answer this, Anita. I'm not trying to leave you out. I want you to use a word in the chat to describe what was your immediate reaction to hearing that truth. Yeah, anger, embarrassed. It all makes sense now. I love the aha moment. Um, the aha moment to me in my own life has created the most personal change. Not sure how to feel. Absolutely stunned. Embarrassed. Absolutely. Anita found it humorous, shocked, hurt, retreat. Yeah, I'll tell you, my default when I am not being my best self and not, I laughed because it's true, but then was mad because she didn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell me everything. Yeah, those are all perfect responses. For me, I define my initial response as defensiveness. When you tell me something about myself that is true that I'm unaware of, what that means is that I have already known that about myself, but I have not been telling myself that about me. So when you point out something that I've been avoiding, my initial response is defensiveness. Yeah, well, what about, and I'd love to tell you something about you that may or may not be true. As much as we can in our sessions together, I want us to acknowledge those feelings. I want us to acknowledge that tightening of the chest that we just go, oh no, stunned. That response we have in our bodies to hearing the truth about ourselves. I want us to acknowledge it, and as much as we're capable, I want us to set it aside. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. I hope we get to know each other better. Um, but I'm not going to judge any of you. I don't live your life. I've not walked in your shoes. And so if you find something about you that you feel like I'm describing about you, that's fantastic. But there's no judgment here. There's just an acknowledgement that there is something about ourselves we need to see and understand. So I hope that is not the feeling you have of being angry or defensive, but that feeling is the one we want to pay attention to. That's the one we want to be sensing in our own bodies. Okay. The Enneagram is 9 types, but it is 3 centers. And again, if we've learned anything from Schoolhouse Rock, it is that 3 is the magic number. And so those centers are the head, the heart, and the body. And every number falls into a center. 9 divides evenly by 3. So each center has 3 numbers within it. And the heart is types 2, 3, and 4. It's what we're going to start with next time. We're going to describe types 2, 3, and 4 in depth. The core negative emotion of the heart is shame, and the core question that drives people who are in the heart center is, am I loved? Little preview, 2s are some of the best caretakers in the world, but when they don't feel like they are reciprocated in their caretaking for others, they can be really bitter about it because they are caring for others often out of the question of, am I loved? Head types, which is what I am, are 5, 6, and 7. And our core emotion is fear. And I'll tell you, it resonates with me. It's 100% true. And the core question is, am I safe? I will say briefly, 3, 6, and 9 are the centers of the centers, right? These are the numbers that are in the middle. They are the numbers that most clearly you can see that heart, that head, and that body. Sixes are all about security. Any of y'all know any people who are preppers, or you are a prepper yourself? Good for you. If the world ends, I'll be coming to your place. Just send me an address in a private message because we don't need everybody there if there's limited supplies. I have friends who have alarms on everything they own. And so to get into buildings, you've got to go through like the gate alarm and the door alarm and the safe alarm and then everything like that because they've never been broken into, these particular friends. They've never had any issue, but they are constantly concerned with their safety. Are they safe? Are they secure? And I can tell you, if I was going to type them, they are sixes for sure. Sixes are driven by fear, so are 5, 6, and 7 to some degree. The last kind, the last center is the body. Sometimes we call this one the gut. I am married to a 1. And before I knew the Enneagram, but when we were dating, when we were students at Tech back in the 1900s, from the get-go, she just felt stuff in her gut. Like she would say, "Oh, this is what we ought to do. I feel this way about it." And I'm a head type, and I would be like, "Well, what if we thought about it for a little bit?" Now, as we've used the Enneagram in our marriage, it's really helped to be like, "Okay, I trust your gut, and also let's think about it a little bit." Any of you ever served on a team with someone who cannot explain why they know what the next right step is, but they just know? They feel it in their body. They're probably an 8, 9, or a 1. Their core emotion is anger. Their core question is, do I have autonomy? They don't like to be boxed in. So those are the 3 centers. We have our heart, tend to be our feelings a lot. Our head, we want to analyze it. And our body or gut, we just know. We just know. So with those brief descriptions, the next thing I would ask you to kind of respond to, wait, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. I'm going to give you the words for all these, and we're going to get into them in the next sessions. But the 9 types in brief are reformers. They're in the body. They are the ones who see something and they know something's not quite right, so they're going to just tweak it a little bit. The helpers, who I described earlier, in the heart. The achievers, who are just want to win every award. They're the first ones with their hands up in class. The individualists, any of you theater kids in your former lives? Yeah, they're all 4s. I mean, and again, please take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. They're not all 4s, but individualists are your Lady Gagas. You know, they're wearing outfits made of random things to award ceremonies because they're just driven in their heart to be individualized. 5s are investigators. We just want to know everything because we are somewhere on the line between curious and nosy. 6 are loyalists, also in the head, really love authority figures, love to latch on to things. 7s are enthusiasts. Man, where is the next party? Where's the next trip? Also in the head. 8s are challengers, also in the body. And then 9, if my head was not in the way, you could tell, is the peacemaker. We're going to get into all of these in a lot of depth, or in as much depth as we can in 45 minutes per 3 in the next sessions. So I hope that you will be back for those so we can kind of figure out what's going on. Okay. Now, why does this matter? Someone asked earlier, what is it and why does it matter? I think it matters because I think self-awareness is the key to successfully leading other people. You can only lead others as far as you've gone. You cannot lead others further than you've led yourself. And so, to me, a crucial piece of emotional intelligence, effective leadership, is self-understanding. And when we know what drives us, when we're aware of that and can choose how to use that power, now we're in a much stronger position to lead teams, to create culture, and to change the world around us personally and professionally. So that's why I think the Enneagram matters in a leader and culture development context. Your type shapes your defaults. The way you have ordered your life, the things you pay attention to, your own personal culture is shaped by your number. And I will say, once you successfully really resonate with a number, I have never seen anyone's number change. And every Enneagram teacher would tell you, we all have a little bit of all the numbers, but there is one number that will resonate more clearly with you. The other thing from a leader perspective is that your blind spots, what you're unaware of, they're not just your burden, they're a burden for your team, for those who follow you. And finally, self-awareness is a service to others. So spending 6 weeks trying to figure out what your motivations are, what your drives are, it's not navel gazing. It is self-understanding to contribute to a better team and to becoming a better leader. We're not here to become perfect. We're here to become aware and free of the compulsions that drive us, of our motivations, of what's behind what we do. All right. With that brief description of the 3 centers, for my own knowledge, and just so you can start thinking about this, what center do you think you live in the most? Do you tend to respond with your head? Do you like to think about things? Your body, excellent. Or your heart? Okay. That's a pretty good distribution. It'll be really interesting. And this will just be kind of for your self-reflection. As we go through these next sessions together, I would be curious if you could reflect on whether you are right or not. I bet you are. You tend to know yourself better. That's a pretty good distribution, 11 responses. We've got the body, the head, and the heart being the least represented there. I wonder if we took this over to some of you are out of MSU, some are out of ASU, some of you are out of El Paso. I wonder if we talked about what professions we're in, what fields we're in, what departments we're in, how much that would overlap with whether we think we are in our body, head, or heart most of the time. That would be interesting. Yeah. So just a little bit of how we'll go from here. Sessions 2 through 4 are going to be a deep dive into these centers, starting with the heart, moving to the head, and then the body. In session 5, we're going to talk about understanding, once you've hopefully resonated with one of the numbers, we're going to talk about understanding how they move. And we'll be using some graphics for those about where do you go as a particular number when you're healthy? Where do you go when you're unhealthy? And how can you use that as a leader in your professional setting or as a person who would like to be a better human? And then finally, in session 6, we're going to tie it all together about how do we take what we know about ourselves and use it to build successful teams, teams that work really well together. Last kind of bit, this should be fun. Hold it lightly. If you feel yourself resisting anything, pay attention to that. That's often some of the most true stuff about us. One more warning, don't type others. You probably will. It's okay. But you shouldn't tell them what you think they are. Let them have their own aha moment. I would encourage you to journal about this. I don't know how much of you journal on a regular basis. But if you could reflect over the coming week between our sessions together about scenarios that come into your real life and how you respond to them, uh, whether it's in your gut or in your heart or in your head, I think it's going to help you to do the work that's ahead of us. Finally, with everything we have, well, next to finally, everything we've talked about today, and then the last couple of minutes we have together, what are you hoping this series does for you as a leader or as a part of a culture? If you could answer that in the chat, I would be curious. Great, Joseph. Increase understanding. Joseph, you're a librarian at MSU, is that right? Increasing understanding is a perfect answer for a librarian. I love that. Knowing myself, how I can improve my leadership abilities. Yeah. If I can understand myself, I can understand others. Right. Emotional intelligence. Sure. Understand myself better. Help me grow my leadership skills. Good. I think we're all on the right track. The Enneagram is a tool, a mirror for self-understanding. Again, kind of like my friend in Wayne's World, it's changed my life. It has helped me to be a better team player, a better parent, a better husband, a better leader in nonprofit work, in civic organizations, a better friend. And I think that all of those skills contribute to the wholeness of who we are in our professional life. So I'm very excited to take this journey with you. Last slide is just the feedback form. Nope. This is more for your journaling, but I already said that to you. When you're stressed, do you reach for thinking, feeling, or doing? I would encourage you to reflect on that some as we come into our time together next time. And then finally, thanks for being here. Really thankful that in the Office of Leader and Culture Development, this is what we get to do with people all over the Texas Tech system. And I would encourage you to scan the QR code and chime in. I want to get better at this. And I want it to be meaningful to you. So if you would take some time and do that, I would appreciate it. And I will be sending an email out with the PDF of the slides, and I have a Word doc with the content from today's sessions that you'll get from me and a recording of the webinar eventually. How do we sign up for sessions 4 through 6? Okay. Pardon me, I'm gonna turn my video off for a second, and I will put a link in the chat. Nope. Anita, there's the link in the chat to sign up for sessions 4 through 6. Thanks, Justine. I will. I will party on. Excellent. Thank you all for being here. If you're wondering about what the pre-music was, Zoom tells me it can play music, but I'm not sure it has what I like. Since I don't record it until later. Oh, Claudia, 1 through 3 are the ones that are happening in May. You may not be able to register for the June ones yet, but if you'll keep that link, we will work on getting those June ones out because this will wrap up in June. And you have my email address from registration. So if you've got anything and you don't get that, just send that to me. Thank you all for being here. Oh, that band earlier was the Punch Brothers. They are a bluegrass super group. So I'd just like to give a little push out to them. That was the song, Another New World. It is the saddest song I know. So I thought we would start with that so we could enjoy our time together. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Tanya. Appreciate it.